Welcome to this tutorial. In this video, I'll be talking about dividend policy. This topic is very essential to those doing accounting for managers, corporate finance, and financial management. All right. So basically, a dividend policy is basically the strategy that an organization puts in place on how it is going to distribute its profits as dividends to its shareholders. So there are various types of dividend policy that I'm going to discuss here, and I'm also going to discuss with you the dividend theories that are there and the factors that affect dividends. All right. So a dividend policy itself, just like I mentioned, it's basically a strategy that an organization puts in place on how it is going to distribute its profits as a dividend to shareholders and the like. Okay. Types of dividends, types of dividend policy. There are basically four types of dividend policy. The first one being a stable dividend policy. Okay, a stable dividend policy is basically a policy where an organization gives a stable amount. Okay, a stable amount. Let's say this is a kwacha, a stable kwacha, and steadily increasing slightly. It can be a stable amount, but it doesn't come downwards. It's just have an upward trend. Okay. So a stable kwacha dividend policy is where an organization assures its shareholders to pay a constant amount or slightly increasing amount as dividends to its shareholders. Okay. So the shareholders, they can predict their cash flows because they know to say the amount doesn't really change coming down. It can change slightly going up, but then it's a constant amount. I'll give you an example. Let's say an organization proposes a dividend payout of 5 kwacha per share, meaning shareholders they can rely on the company to say it's going to pay them 5 kwacha per share as dividend every year. So the beauty about this type of dividend is that you are able to predict your future cash flows, and it is also good for those that rely on dividend as their survival income. For example, if you are a retiree, you need to invest in an organization which gives an assurance of a dividend, and such an organization is one which implements a stable dividend policy. That's the first dividend. I've talked about its advantage, having the shareholders to forecast their cash flows because they know certainly the dividend will be paid, but there is also one negative aspect of it, which is straining the cash flows in the event the company does not perform well. So if the company do not perform well and there are no profits, it simply means that the company might be forced to borrow money to finance the dividends, because that's the policy that they've put in place. All right. Now we focus on the second dividend policy. The second type of dividend policy is the constant payout ratio. So now let's not get too confused these two. There is a stable kwacha or a constant kwacha amount and a constant payout ratio. These two are two different things altogether. When we say a constant amount, we simply mean that there is a fixed amount attached to a particular share being paid as a dividend, say 5 kwacha per share. But when we say a constant payout ratio, we are looking at it as a ratio in relation to retained earnings, which are profits of the business. After the business has paid everything, that amount which remains. Okay? So a constant ratio, this one fluctuates because constant payout ratio can be, say for example, the company can declare a payout ratio of 30%. The company can declare a payout ratio of 30%. 30% of what? Of the profit that the organization is doing what? Is making. Alright? So if the organization profits they go up, it simply means that the dividends to be paid will also go up because they'll just hammer a 30% on the profits, and when the profits reduces, also the dividends to be paid out, they get to do what? To reduce. Alright? One of the advantages of this kind of a payout ratio is that the organization does not get into stress in the event that it does not make much profits, because the dividends are dependent on the profits being generated by the business. All right, so that's how this looks like. So it's 30%. 30% of what? Of the profits that has been generated. Advantage: the company does not stress to pay dividends, because the dividends, they follow the profits that have been generated. All right. What is the major disadvantage? This kind of a dividend is not predictable. It simply means that the shareholders, they cannot forecast their future what? Cash flows. All right. Then there's the other one, which is a residual dividend policy. Residual dividend policy is just like the word residue is what basically remains. So under residual dividend policy is that the organization will seek to finance all the investments which have an NPV which is what? Positive. All I'm saying is they will first begin by funding the investment where they are seeing that these investments are financially viable, and then what remains after financing the investments is what they distribute as dividends. So as long as there are investments which are attractive, the organization can actually finance all of the dividends until all of the profits as investment, and then what remains is what they basically get and distribute to shareholders. All right. This one, it seeks to grow the organization. So the good about it is the capital gains for shareholders goes up, because the company is actually growing in size and its investment, therefore improving the share price of the organization. All right. No dividend policy. Okay, the bad and the beauty about a residual dividend policy is that there are capital gains. The bad thing is shareholders are not really certain of their future what? Cash flows, because they don't know as to when the organization begins to actually they don't know when the organization stops to finance their what? The investment, and when it starts to give dividends. No policy, no dividend policy, no dividend policy. This is where an organization has taken a stance of not paying any dividend at all, simply meaning that all the retained earnings and the profits that are made in the business, they are just reinvested in the business. So it's like the business is just focusing on growth and not distributing dividends to shareholders. Also, this one is not good for people who are seeking immediate consumption of their investment. So if you are an investor and you are a retiree, this kind of a dividend policy is not for you, because you will not have a steady cash flows coming through. You would rather go for stable dividend policy. This one will just be there to basically reinvest in the business. And one of the advantages is that capital gains are actually taxed less than dividends. So in here, there is a saving in tax being paid by who? By shareholders, such that their capital gains goes up because they are less taxed as opposed to if they received dividends. All right. So now those are the 4 dividend policies that I wanted to discuss with you. And then now I shift my attention on dividend theories. There are basically 5 key dividend theories. Number 1 is the dividend theory, which says the irrelevance theory, dividend irrelevance theory. Dividend irrelevance theory was coined in by Modiglian and Miller, who suggested that whether the shareholders they receive a dividend or they do not receive a dividend, the gain is the same. If they receive the dividend, well and good, they've got the cash in their hands, which they can use. If they don't receive the dividend, well and good, their share value increases because the organization is actually reinvesting the profits. So they are saying either ways, for the shareholders, it's a win-win situation. If they don't receive the dividend, they'll have capital gains. If they receive the dividends, they have the cash with themselves. So they are saying actually dividends are actually irrelevant and they do not mean anything whether paid for or not paid in a particular period of time. Montgillian and Miller, there they go. The bed in the hand theory. This theory is the theory that believes that a dividend now is better than an anticipation in the future, because nobody knows the future and nobody holds the future. In my tribe, Bemba, there is a saying which says, what you have is what you actually appreciate, as opposed to what you don't have in the hand. So this theory proposes that a dividend is actually better than having no dividend. Okay, the tax preference theory. The tax preference theory also goes slightly hand in hand with the no dividend policy, where we say with preference to tax, the company might choose to withhold dividends in order to make savings from tax which could have been paid. All right, so that's the tax preference theory. And then we have got the signaling theory, where we say dividends, they act like a signal to an organization, such that if dividends are not paid, potential investors might view the organization as not being stable in terms of cash flow and the profitability. So the dividends themselves, they act as what? As a signal. So if an organization is paying dividends, an organization is viewed by the potential investors to say this organization is doing well, and if it's not paying dividends, it will signal again to say this organization is not doing quite well. The last theory that I wanted to discuss is the clientele effect theory. The clientele effect theory is a dividend theory which looks at investors as clients in such a way that the dividend policy adopted by the organization, will attract a certain class of investors who are looking to such. For example, you might have this individual who is pretty wealth, okay, and then we have another individual here. Probably this is a retired fellow, and depends on dividends for survival. So for this guy, this company can choose no dividend. This one can be paying a stable dividend. So for this guy who is pretty wealth, he already have the cash, the money is there, and something is there, and he's just looking forward to build his wealth. He might choose to go for an organization which pays no dividend and grows the organization through retained earnings. He might choose capital gains as opposed to cash being received as dividend, because this guy, he already has something to put on the table and he is already wealthy. But for this guy who is a retiree, this guy might choose an organization which pays a stable amount as a dividend, because they'll be looking at what really is coming in for survival. You get the point, right? So this is how the two are going to have their preferences as it comes to the company of choice. So clientele effect, as an organization, just choose your dividend policy, and that policy will attract a certain kind of clients as investors. All right. So those are the theories that I wanted to discuss with you. Now, finally, let me discuss with you the factors affecting dividend policy or dividend payout. Number one, the factors affecting the dividend payout is the profit stability, which is profitability of the organization. Remember, dividends are paid out of profit, so if the business is not profitable, it won't be able to distribute its dividends as suggested or as ideally. All right. So profitability is one of the factors that are affecting dividend of an organization. All right. Another thing is cash flow availability. You might be profitable, but if you don't have liquidity, As well, you might find challenges in paying out dividends and stuff like that. Then the other thing is investment opportunities. If there are a lot of investment opportunities, the organization might choose to invest part of its retained earnings as opposed as giving them as dividends. So this is one of the things that will affect dividend payouts or dividend policy for an organization. Debt, which is the gearing levels of an organization. An organization which is heavily dependent on debt in financing its capital might have less dividend to pay out, because dividends are paid out of profits. It simply means that this organization has actually exposed itself to financial risk and is paying quite a lot of interest. So by the time they are realizing a profit, the profit is little as to oppose as to distribute to its shareholders. Tax consideration. This is one of the things also affecting the dividend to be paid out. So you see that in some jurisdiction where the tax are very stiff on dividends, some companies might opt to build capital gains as to pay dividends, which would be heavily taxed. Then legal constraints. There are just some countries where dividends are guided by corporate governance and also the legal system of the country. All right. So some foreign investors might have issues in paying out dividends because probably maybe the legal system of the country, they just want the company first to invest in that country before they can begin paying out dividends. Thank you very much.